Item number 5 is a presentation that I have this evening on water. I was to give it 2 weeks ago, and it was postponed. And then, of course, we had this incident. And although this really isn't in the realm of hazard mitigation, certainly that's what's on the back of everybody's mind. This is an article from the Enid paper called "It's Not Too Soon to Think About Rationing Water Again." It was published on January the 18th, February 18th, I believe. It says, 2 seasons of scorching drought forced Enid to implement controversial rationing. Enid is emphasizing well drilling and water acquisition. And where will they drill wells and acquire their water? It's also practical for industry to use so-called gray water to free the resource for increased to free fresh water for increased residential use. Koch Industries' nitrogen plant was Enid's top treated water user in 2011, consuming a massive 1.6 billion with a B gallons of water. That's consuming a lot of water. So I hope they find some ways to reuse, recycle, or make use of gray water. While the city may be working to develop new wells, there's still only so much water to be had. The real answer is simple, but less popular. People need to learn to get by with less. We need to conserve water year-round, even when it's raining outside. So that's from the Enid paper. Then I have before me an article about the Oklahoma State Water Plan, which the legislature spent most of the 2011 session working on, trying to develop a comprehensive water policy while facing a lawsuit over Sardis Lake and a second federal lawsuit over Oklahoma's refusal to sell water to North Texas. During that same time, the Oklahoma Water Resources Board released a water plan that called for huge investments in infrastructure and changes in state law, and established a 50-year goal of not increasing consumption, even though we expect population to grow. So that's an interesting article about the Oklahoma water plan. I feel like it favors that portion of the state that has water and largely ignores that portion of the state which needs water. Another report I have here, and I just received it last week, is from the Sunflower H2O district, which we were a part of until last year. The engineering on this project has been completed, and in summation, the optimal groundwater source would be the Kiowa County Aquifer, costing approximately $2.2 million to develop, with an estimated yield of 1.2 million gallons per day. The optimal surface water source, and I think that we need to be looking at a reservoir somewhere, somehow, probably should have started one 30 years ago, would be a proposed reservoir on Elm Creek, which, if you're familiar with the area, is 3 miles north of Medicine Lodge. It would cost approximately $95.5 million to develop, with an estimated yield of 12.4 million gallons per day. And by using the two of those in what's called conjunctive cooperation, you can supply quite a large community with water. I also have in my hand the well field study, which the City of Alva paid for a year ago, last month, by Myers Engineering. And it offers specific proposals and recommendations on how to maximize our existing well field, to reactivate some wells that have been abandoned, and to procure additional water rights to guarantee a stabilized water supply in the future. It goes on to say that the hills and terraces that extend along the Cimarron River on the north side allows water to percolate into them and collect on an impervious layer called the red bed. This is the water that is stored in the well field as groundwater. So, ladies and gentlemen, our aquifer is recharged by rainwater. And so if it doesn't rain, it will be depleted. It's also critical to protect and maintain an open and clean surface above the aquifer to protect the groundwater. And so we have before us a dilemma on how to do that, because we have cattle operations in the area, we have oil drilling operations in the area, and all of these could pose, and we have a hazardous waste disposal plant right across the river. So we have all of these factors which could jeopardize our water system. Water is our most precious natural resource. I know that oil has been on the front burner lately. But Joe Freeman from the Water Resources Board says $82 billion will be needed as funding for Oklahoma's future water needs, with the greatest needs among communities of under 3,300. Now, while we don't quite meet that criteria, our need is critical nonetheless. With 3% loans available for 15 years, there is no better time to look at funding our crumbling water infrastructure. Conservation, recycling, reuse, all are alternatives to increase production, but we must think sustainability as our burgeoning population and future economic needs develop. I think that a long-range water plan, much like the 50-year plans proposed by the state, is something we should do as a municipal and as a regional project. We could start with something as simple as a message on our water bills, promoting conservation. I think we should implement a year-round, odd, even watering plan, because as Enid said, we should conserve water even when it's raining. We should impose fines for unattended watering that runs down the street. Other communities do. I don't think we should have a water police necessarily, but certainly that should be reported. And I think we should outlaw those sprinklers that throw the water high in the air, much of it running or blowing away or evaporating needs. Water waste. I propose applying for a grant through state and federal agencies and supplementing it with a bond issue to seek additional water rights, maximize our current sources, and assign a task force to study water loss between the well field and the service areas. We pump more water than we meter. People are willing to pay more for their cell phone than they are for their water rate. So it's time to change from a commodity rate to a delivery rate. Look at your gas bill. You pay for the gas separately and the delivery rate in another part of the bill. And that delivery rate, of course, is based on the value of the water plus the costs of new and maintaining existing infrastructure, personnel, chemicals, electricity, equipment administration, and that parasitic loss that I mentioned earlier. That can only mean one thing: a higher water bill. Our strategic planning must include the goal of reducing current water use and a study of the conjunctive uses, meaning a combination of interconnecting well and surface water. And for that reason, I propose we rejoin the Sunflower Water District immediately. Contact the Prensey Water District in Guyman as an area for gaining direction as how to conserve water. And encourage the eradication of the red cedar, which is a major consumer of soil moisture in the region. I'll also be asking various agencies to help schedule a 2-day regional water conference for Northwest Oklahoma and South Central Kansas to be held in Allen, to study the feasibility of cooperative efforts to promote conservation, reuse, recycling, and procuring additional water resources. And our mission statement could say something like this: to establish a comprehensive water plan for Northwest Oklahoma and South Central Kansas, to reduce consumption by an attainable percentage, and pursue conservation, reuse, recycling, and the maximization of subterranean and reservoir sites as dependable water sources to stimulate economic development, retail development, tourism, and drinking water sources, including conjunctive and common use. I know that I can count on this and the surrounding communities to support this venture with their time and resources because, as the last week has proven, our future is at stake, and it depends on water. Now, I'll be meeting with the Sunflower Steering Committee tomorrow evening in Medicine Lodge, and I'll report back to you after that meeting. Any questions? Thank you.
$6,885.91.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Clerk may call the roll.
McDonald?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Lael?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Hardaway?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Item number 3, discussion and action to approve the Alva Recreational Center Board's recommendation of Green Valley Nursery, LLC, as the lowest and best bidder of the ODOT tree planting grant, Safety Lou 10-2001, in the amount of $26,650, which you'll find under tab number 3. Joe Don?
Yes, the Alva Rec Center Board met in regular session on February 20th. During this meeting, they discussed and evaluated the bidders for the ODOT tree planting grant. The bids were mailed out January 24th and opened on February 7th. Bids were mailed out to approximately 62 prospective Oklahoma bidders, and there were 11 bids received. Bids ranged between $26,650 and $43,810. Alva's budget approximately is $35,000 for this grant, which includes the $25,000 ODOT grant. There's some additional work which will be required to be done, such as installing the drip system around the southwest baseball field, which is a requirement of the grant. We're going to be moving some existing trees to another location around the rec center. The rec center staff made reference checks on the 11 bidders and recommended the Green Valley Nursery Center out of Claremore, Oklahoma. This recommendation was accepted by the rec center board and is now being recommended to this authority as the lowest and best bidder.
Is there a motion to accept this bid?
I move we accept the Rec Center Board's recommendation of Green Valley Nursery LLC as the lowest and best bidder of the ODOT tree planting grant, Safety Lou 10-2001, in the amount of $26,650.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Clerk may call the roll.
Brown?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Lael?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Jensen?
Yes.
Hardaway?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
This meeting is adjourned.